Hello, welcome to Nightmare Flicks. I am Nate, you are you, and Charles Lee Ray is Chucky, or at least he is yet again. We have now gone back to the original Don Mancini timeline. We are back in that chronology. We are no longer working with the Mark Hamill Chucky that we saw in the last iteration of a Child's Play film. And we're now no longer on the silver screen. We are on TV. And since I first reacted to that trailer for this series, I've been kind of curious as to how this would play out on TV. Would Chucky be hamstrung? Would we lose, the foul mouth language? Would we lose the brutality and gore? Would we be able to be as zany and crazy as we wanted to? Or would be held back by USA and Syfy? So far, so good on those respects, because we did see Charles Lee Ray dropping the F-bombs, calling people assholes and such. We only got one death on screen. There was a cat killed, but we did not see that. And that kill was a bit odd. So I'm still not I'm not swung in either direction. I don't know if this is going to be a fantastic series. I don't know if this is going to be terrible. There are things I like and there are things I took issue with. So let's talk about what I liked first and foremost. One, it was just great to hear Brad Dourif doing his thing as Chucky, even though he did seem a little bit subdued so far in his performance. I felt like the audio levels were a little bit off at times, but he should have been a little bit more louder and pronounced. I don't feel like he went for the same old crazy unhinged type of performance that he usually does. I don't think there was much palpable anger so far, but maybe that will happen in later episodes. Then, of course, there was a phone call at one point in the episode, and somebody was inquiring about the Chucky doll, and I think all of us big-time Child's Play fans know that was the voice of Andy, and that he is calling around to everybody's posting dolls online, trying to figure out if they have a Chucky doll. And if they are in danger. He's trying to track them down. So I thought that was interesting. I think we're going places, and I thought that was one of the strong points of this first episode, is that it did make me want to see what happens next week, and that I'm asking myself questions as somebody who does like the franchise. I'm thinking to myself, well, are we still carrying off of what happened there in Cult of Chucky? Because if so, is Chucky out here still able to put himself in all sorts of different vessels? Are we keeping that aspect? How did he get into this particular vessel? How did he end up at that yard sale? Will all of this be told to us in time? Where is Nika? How long until Andy pops up? Where's Tiffany? What is she doing? How does she factor into all this? Because we know we are getting these regulars and these mainstays at some point. So I just can't wait to see how that is going to unfold. So they do still have me on hook. And I think a big part of that is I don't mind the characters that we have in their place so far. I think this young cast so far is relatively interesting, starting with our protagonist. What's interesting about this Jake Weber kid is that he's not just some cut and dry good guy. This is not some clear as day, heroic, pinnacle of proper moral values against Charles Lee Ray. No, this is a character who has been bullied, he has been abused, he's kind of tragic in that he's suffered the loss of his mother, and he feels like the world is just using him as a punching bag, and he doesn't feel accepted anywhere. He's kind of turned inward. He's making weird doll sculptures in his room, only to have his dad lash out and break the whole thing down. And then we see him pick Chucky up. And as he's looking at Chucky, we hear a song playing called "This Is How Villains Are Made." And I just thought that was really interesting when you think about this character's possible arc and where we might be going and what it might mean for Chucky to actually have an accomplice. Because we're so used to the type of thing where we just have a straight up good guy versus the good guy doll. Here, we have a character who's kind of mad at the world. He feels victimized and he's got a lot of suffering and pain. It looks like he's going to want to point it back at others, these bullies at school. And so he might actually not just allow Chucky to do his thing, he may end up assisting Chucky. And I think that'll be a new type of endeavor that we haven't seen so far in this franchise. I'm interested to see where that goes and if he gets some sort of redemption arc. Or will he just go all the way bad? And will Andy have to stop him? What are we setting up here? So I thought that was interesting. That is what I'm saying. We kind of created some interesting questions to ponder until we get episode number 2. And I think that's a really good thing for a pilot. Now, of course, we also have characters that you're going to love to hate. And that's wonderful for a slasher. We need that in slasher films. And nobody's more hateable so far than this Lexi character. She is just a bitch and a half. I mean, she's a straight up mean girl. She is nasty. And I just feel for any of you who are watching who are in middle school or high school right now, I'm glad I got out when I did, because things were not like this back then. I feel so old for saying this, but the whole Instagram, TikTok, Twitch streaming thing, that wasn't really as big back when I was in it. I'm glad I didn't have to do that. People weren't just trying to do GoFundMes against me and put me on camera without me knowing and streaming me without my knowledge and trying to target me to a mass audience at all times. bullying, I understand why they went after it in this way, because high school, middle school, they have to be very tough right now. And I thought that was an interesting idea. And that this, I think another triumph here is that we are using young characters, but we didn't go for kids that don't look like kids. They don't look like 25-year-old actors who have six packs and traps up to their earlobes. They don't look like models. They don't look like they're walking off the set of Riverdale or something like that. So it does feel a little bit more grounded, and therefore I think the character is actually a little bit more sympathetic, and you don't have me rolling my eyes like, oh, I'm just getting some young adult nonsense. No, we're going to get some characters that have some real drama going on, but I think we're actually going to be interested to see it, because even though Jake is kind of looking to do some bad things and get revenge, he is a little bit sentimental, and I understand where he's coming from, because I've had to see everything that is happening to him, and I hate this Lexi girl just as much as he does. So a real highlight then for me was that talent show, and seeing Chucky kind of come to Jake's rescue and do the ventriloquist routine, but all together just kind of really bring this girl down a peg, really humiliate her, embarrass her. And I thought the wit and comedy, the humor, I thought it came through. I thought it was really well carried out. I love the joke about the Pokemon porn. I can't imagine being up on a stage just to have your parents and all your peers hear that about you, or that you like the smell of your own farts. So that actually got a smile out of me, that put a grin on my face. And a lot of times in this first episode, I did feel like the comedy worked. As for things that didn't work, I feel like we may not be properly developing this arc for Jake and his kind of turn to Chucky and allowing Chucky to do all these things. I feel like we maybe rushed it just a tad here in the first episode, because I mentioned that a cat is killed. I think his name is Mr. Binks or something like that. The cat gets killed and kind of just gets swept under the rug. You'd think this could have a bigger reaction and he'd be a little bit more sad about it, but he doesn't really seem to care. He just lost his father, he just lost his cat, and we're just moving on. I thought that was a little bit odd, so hopefully they take a little bit more time to really, draw out those emotional responses, make the arcs feel more complete, make character motivations seem more sensible and plausible, so we don't lose the grounded feel. I know it sounds funny saying groundedness for a killer doll property, but I think that's why Chucky works, and I think that's when he works his best, is like in Child's Play 1, Child's Play 2, a lot of the times it feels like the real world, and you have great characters that actually feel like real adults or real children. And so then when you have this completely unreal, this otherworldly kind of entity, this killer doll running around, but everyone else is still acting like normal human beings in a grounded, logical reality, then I think that's where you actually get your horror. I don't think you can have a complete zany, farce type of thing and the killer doll. I think that then becomes a little too cartoonish, it becomes a little bit too comical, and it's hard for somebody like me to really get in there invested and just stay with it for the full ride. And the last thing I really wanted to talk about with this first episode was the kill of the father, of Devon Sawa. That actually caught me off guard. I figured at some point we might see him killed in this series, but I did not expect it to be in the pilot. I mean, the way they set this guy up, it was like, oh, okay, this guy's a douche. He's an asshole, and I'm rooting against him. We're going one of two ways here. He's either going to have a nice redemptive arc, and he will come to his son's aid at some point and see the wrong in his ways, or he's going to get killed, and it's going to be grisly and it's going to be crazy, but it'll be one of the best kills in the series. It'll be one of the highlights. And instead, it was kind of rushed again, in my opinion, because we kill him in the first episode, and it really wasn't that great. It really was not a kill that I liked or enjoyed. I don't think there were really any redeeming values about the kill, because it came via Chucky throwing up on the man's feet after Chucky has chugged an entire thing of whiskey, and the man being electrocuted while having the vomit on his feet. And Chucky didn't look good in this moment. The mask, or his head, I should say, it didn't look right. You could tell that there was some sort of funneling in the neck, some sort of pump system that was, being used to propel all of that fake vomit outward. The doll just didn't look good. It did not look right. It looked off-putting. And then there was no real gore with this kill. You got a real up close, hard zoom on the eyeball while he's being electrocuted, and that's about as far as they went. And then Devon Sawa just looked ridiculous. He didn't go for the common type of I'm being electrocuted acting. He wasn't shaking about and convulsing. Luckily, he didn't get so cartoonish that we saw his skeleton flashing in black. But he does look weird because he just kind of paused there with his mouth wide open like that, and it just looked goofy. I didn't feel creeped out. I didn't feel like I was scared. I also didn't feel like I thought it was a fun kill. I just thought it was an oddball, kind of out of left field, not so great type of kill, especially for the first kill in the series and the kill of the protagonist's father. a kill of this guy who was so easy to hate and root against. I feel like that kill should have been one of the best in the series, and instead I just did not like it at all. I didn't like anything about it. I don't even like the aftermath where the son comes down and sees the father, and Chucky's in the back, and there's like kind of a strobe effect, and it's supposed to look like every time the light kind of flashes down for a second, we get darkness, that Chucky's rushing up. And so, you know, he's doing that thing that you always get in horror movies where he's here, and he's here. But that wasn't even done effectively. That wasn't even done properly, because it almost just looked like he was teleporting. The light wasn't out for long enough that you could plausibly believe that he was rushing up, stopping, rushing, stopping, like he was playing Ghost in the Graveyard. No, it just kind of looked like he was like zoom, 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 like teleportation. It just did not look good. Nothing about that kill looked good. And that was one of the biggest problems I have. So hopefully the kills get much better as we go on. Hopefully, even though this is a TV show, we're going to get all sorts of gore and some kills that feel like proper send-ups to this franchise that has had some really nice creative carnage candy in its history. So there you go. Those are my takeaways. I'm interested to see what happens with a lot of these characters. I found most of them to be likable or outright hateable, and that is a good thing. That could really go some places. I like that this Jake Weber character has some darkness to him, and that he might be out to do some bad things. He might kind of play into Chucky and enable Chucky to do a lot of stuff and give him access to his victims. I think that could be really interesting. I can't wait to see all of this unfolds. I can't wait to figure out the answers to all these questions I have about past characters and how they're going to factor into things. So be sure to let me know your thoughts on the first episode down in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel and you love Chucky, go ahead and subscribe. We will be doing reviews for all of these episodes, and then we will talk about everything at the very end of the season as well. We might do a ranking of the episodes. You never do know. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic day. I'm Nate for Nate Merflick saying that's a wrap.